I switched my focus onto just getting money on every job, getting a sale on every job. Well, then what I noticed is my numbers dropped because now I'm taking those lower options and not pushing for the higher options. So through trial and tribulation and with Sam, our sales trainer, he showed me like, all I got to do is bring my lowest ticket up. So if my lowest ticket was $500, that's an easy walk away. If I bring that up to $5,000, that's what the people go with.
Welcome to the Waste No Day podcast, a podcast specifically for and about the home services industry as it relates to plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and electrical. More than a podcast, Waste No Day is a credo, a determination, a mindset. It is a never-ending discipline. It is a refuse to lose pursuit. It is a wake-up call every morning to waste no day. Now here's your hosts, Brian Burton and Nate Minnick.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Waste No Day podcast. Your host, Nate and Brian, hanging out with you again. Looking forward to a great episode. Brian, I know you're out there somewhere listening to this introduction, waiting patiently with your quote. But this is actually the first time we have ever done a 4 returning guest episode. Mr.
4
Logan,
stars.
4 stars.
4 episodes.
4 episodes. Mr. Logan Altland is joining us again today. We're looking forward to a great conversation with him. He's been on this show more times than anybody else, and there's a reason for it, because not only is he a great dude, but he is on another level. You're going to hear that today as we get to conversate with him about the reasons why and just what level he is on. Looking forward to a great conversation there. Before we do,
you think about,
are you just going to interrupt me now? Usually you save that for later on.
Yeah, well, you think about the caliber of some of the guests we've had on, right? Just in the sales trainer world, but outside of that, I mean, Jocko Willink and Jeremy Minor and Andy Elliott and Tom Hopkins and Brian Tracy and Chris Voss twice, and so many. Brian Smith, the founder of UGG Boots, which is still just such an awesome episode. That cool story episode was incredible. And probably the several that I'm not thinking of for whatever reason. Tim Kennedy, and all these people. Logan's first episode is still top 10 all-time most downloaded episode of Waste No Day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man.
And probably every electrician I talk to that's a Waste No Day fan quotes his episode as their favorite Waste No Day episode.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the Sparkies don't get as much love as some of the other trades, admittedly, on the show. So,
well, anywhere. I mean, yeah, they don't get. We've had a lot of electricians on this show. There's been a ton of them, but they're somewhat underserved. They're underserved in sales training and sales and communication training, and they don't get the love that especially HVAC gets, but also plumbing. They're just kind of the redheaded stepchild of the trades in terms of home services. And his episode was a master class in training for selling electrical work with principles and integrity, right? So it makes perfect sense that it's so many electricians' favorite episode.
Absolutely. And this is going to add to that category as we're talking about not only things in the electrical world, because that is his sphere, but just things in general. And we're going to cover why is he winning so much now? We're going to talk about how he's doing it. We're going to talk about what he's doing in the home that's making a difference for him. And it's going to be a great conversation today.
People don't buy because they understand you. They buy because you understand them. Jeffrey Gitomer.
All right. I like it because Logan is a guy who absolutely focuses on the client. He is genuine. When you talk to him, and I do in the hallways, I see him out in the parking lot, in the training room, whatever, like Logan's Logan. There's no facade. There's no fake. Logan is Logan. And he has been able to transfer that level of authenticity to the homeowner when he's doing his in-home presentation. It's a great quote.
Yeah, Jeffrey Gitomer wrote, I don't know, half a dozen books on selling or something like that. I know Nate and I were talking about the fact that he didn't know who he was, but he actually wrote, it's funny because I usually call certain books the Bible on selling. Like The Psychology of Selling by Brian Tracy was it for me when I first read it. It's the first book I read on sales, and it's still very powerful. And then Influence by Dr. Robert Cialdini was massive. Oh, that's another one we had on Dr. Cialdini. And then Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. I'm like, dude, those 3 books are just everything you need to know about communicating, right? Influence, selling, communicating, all wrapped into one.
All right, Brian. Well, who is the special someone who gave us a review this time?
You're going to love this name. Amazing. 5 stars. There is so much great knowledge to learn from this podcast. You guys have taught me so much in a short time that has helped me become a better technician. Spiteful Tick.
Really?
Really?
Really? Wow.
The names on the reviews are worth reading the review alone,
100%. That's such a positive review for such a negative name. I mean, like,
Spiteful Tick. Like,
oh my word.
Really, though, is there any other kind?
Well, I guess not. I don't really study that, but sure.
Those little bloodsuckers,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They literally just they plunge their head into you and just get to sucking on your blood.
I'm guessing that's something you don't have in Arizona, right?
If we do, I'm not aware of them. I can't imagine a tick wanting to hang out in 118 degrees and sunny.
Much less a human. Meanwhile, in Pennsylvania, there's like ticks every which way you look, and you can't go walking.
No, not now, because everything's frozen.
Well, yes, there is.
And it's cloudy. Let me guess. There's no sun out today.
No, it was beautiful today. Very cold, but it was beautiful.
Hey, we appreciate the shout out. Yeah, big stuff. Appreciate you, Spiteful Tick. This is the first time in my life I have appreciated a tick, much less a spiteful one. So appreciate the shout out for everyone who reaches out to us any way, shape, or form, however you do it, social media or whatever. We always appreciate the fist bump. But when you drop the Apple review or run over to Spotify and click that 5-star button, but when you actually write an Apple review, other than sharing it on publicly on social media and talking about what it's done for you, writing the Apple review is the second most impactful thing you can do to help the show. Because when I reach out to some of these guests that I'm trying to bring on the show, and I get a gatekeeper, PR person, or interview podcast scheduler, the first thing they do is go to Apple, whether they listen on to Apple or whatever, they go to Apple, they look at the reviews. So it's the count and how many there are and what people are saying. That's it. That's the very first step most gatekeepers take on deciding if your show is worthy of having their person on. So every time you drop an Apple review, you help us up the caliber of guest. Not to mention the fact that Nate and I love the shout out even when we're just bummed or whatever, man. Those days it's a little tougher to get up the stairs and separate from our families this time in the evening and cut these things up. It's like I can pop the Apple app, the iTunes app open and read a couple reviews and go, oh, you know what? We got a job to do. So let's go handle business real quick.
Which brings us to the third most impactful thing you can do to support the show, and that's send us last week's paycheck. Still waiting for that one, but it would help support the show.
Hopefully Logan's.
That's a great segue, Brian, and we're super excited to put Mr. Logan Altland in your passenger seat right now. Our guest today is Logan Altland. This man needs no introduction. He's been on the show plenty of times before. 15-year electrician, currently working in Mister Sparky Electric in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. That's my office. He has been on the show before talking about anything from objections to how he is running a call like a $3 million electrician. This man has been seen across the country. He's been celebrated and awarded across the country. He's been on other podcasts. He's getting a name for himself, and there's a reason why, because he's doing amazing things and he's doing them in the right way. Looking forward to this one. Welcome back, Logan.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for having me back.
Logan is the prestigious winner of I don't think there was an award for it, but the most revenue sold in a year in the history of Mister Sparky Electric nationwide.
Yep.
Which was, what was the number?
3.3 million.
3.3 million. What are you tracking this year, buddy?
4.2.
Yeah, baby.
First and only to ever hit 3, right? And could potentially be the first to ever hit 4 before anyone else hits 3. Not too shabby. Now, you're probably just ripping everybody off. I know. It's got to be. It's the only way you could sell that much. And this is what everybody thought. And the first Waste No Day episode that Logan did with Nate and me was, Nate will come up with that date real quick. But I remember I wasn't doing social media posting really before that episode. And with that episode, I just said, bro, dude did this much revenue in an electrical truck. And electrical it's the one when it comes to like guys saying, yeah, HVAC can do that and plumbers can do that and blah, 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 but not me and not in my market. Meanwhile, he's in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Like there's an actual percentage of the population that's Amish and doesn't even have electricity in their home in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And he's crushing it like that. And when I made the post, a lot of what I got on social media was scam artist, ripoff artist, just nothing but hate. And I'm here for it, and the one thing I was saying was, hey, just listen to the episode. Check the episode out, save your criticism, and I'll be wide open for it after the episode. There was a little hate, like they just didn't believe, what they were hearing. But nobody listened to the episode and said he's doing something wrong. And most electricians that listen to the Waste No Day podcast call that episode their favorite episode.
And the one you'd be talking about there, the first one, April 25th, 2022. Logan's actually been on 3 times in total. 2 of them were 2-parters, often joining Jamie Mellinger. It was one of them. And then also Dylan Moya, 3 Million Plumber. So this is actually Logan's 4-peat, which I believe is a Waste No Day first. And speaking of 4-peats and 3-peats, it just kind of reminds me about, how the Super Bowl and, the Eagles and there could have been a 3-peat. Oh, thank you, Logan. You wore this shirt. It's
Logan
so
said an Eagles shirt up.
It's so good. Anyways, that, of course, completely irrelevant to the topic at hand, but we're super honored and excited to have you back on for a 4th time, Logan.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. I'm honored to be here again.
Yeah, man. So we're going to be talking about a number of things today. It's going to be a bit of a spontaneous conversation, but all these things are going to be directed at elevating your game, right? And so, Logan, you continue to find new gears and new methods or just ways of performing at higher and higher levels, which, we've talked about that topic before, about finding like the next rung when you're at the top of the ladder. And you continue to do this in an electrical truck, driving around, serving clients, which is so, so amazing. And you're doing it in a way that, leads aren't being flipped to you. Like you're running these calls. Now, obviously you're not doing your own installs, but you're running these calls. Nobody's handing you like these just cherry picked, hey, cool, this person talked to me and said they're interested in doing some electrical work. And they're like, all right, well, let's send Logan over there. I mean, we do some cross brand stuff and we try to do those as much as we can, but most of the stuff that you're running is just regular service calls and that type of stuff. So I want to dig into that a little bit. I want to talk about how your perspective on closing and your numbers focus orientation is driving some of your performance this year. And then, because it's been a while and because we know you love it, we're going to get into some objections today, and we're going to have some fun role playing that out a little bit. All right?
Perfect.
So let's kind of set the stage here a little bit. Perhaps some people are just joining the podcast. I know Brian's doing boot camps and things like that. So we're constantly getting new listeners to the show. Logan's been on here before, but it's been a minute since you have. And so why don't you kind of give some context in terms of what your day-to-day looks like? How long have you been in the trades? And tell us exactly what you love about what you're doing.
Yeah, so I've been in the trades a total of probably, 13 before I came to Sparky. So 15 years now. I've done anything from industrial to high voltage down to commercial to residential now. I got to say, when I took a job at Sparky, I didn't realize it was going to be what it was. I didn't know what a residential electrician did. I actually always made fun of them.
As you should.
But now I see why plumbers inspire to have a hero. And I get it. So my day-to-day, that's a little bit of backstory about me. I come from a rough upbringing, but when I found this company, it's made me really value that. And that kind of goes into what I like about this place is I love helping people. That is what I like doing. I like to see a smile on someone's face when they're having a bad day. And I like to be the cause of that, really. And of course, I mean, it's no secret the money's awesome too, but it's truly because I enjoy helping people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a sincere, heartfelt motivation. I can speak to that as one who works with Logan and sees him on a regular basis. This isn't a show that he puts on for the show. This is who he is and what he does. And he thoroughly enjoys not only serving the client, but helping other guys succeed as well. Greatly appreciate that, Logan. Now, in terms of how you're doing this, we've talked with Brent Buckley about getting to the top of the ladder and then continuing to find new ways. Brent spoke, this is a number of years ago now, but Brent spoke about how he got to a place where he couldn't run any more calls. He couldn't sell any more boxes. So he had to start expanding what he was selling. And on the HVAC side, instead of selling just a furnace or an AC, he then started selling IAQ and ductwork and attic installation. And he kept expanding so that he could maximize the potential of serving one sales call, one client with more opportunity, as opposed to trying to jam 4 more clients in the same day and really run ragged there. So obviously, I don't know what you're doing, man, and I want to hear from you, but you're finding new ways of creating opportunity. I don't know if it's on the closing side, the average ticket side, you're offering different things. What is driving this new level of success and this new pursuit of a goal this year? I mean, you're tracking towards 4 million, which is absolutely insane. And that's higher than you've ever been before. So tell us what's going on to make this happen.
Yeah. So it was a couple months ago when we switched to, October, we switched to Service Titan. Before, we never tracked closing rate. I mean, that wasn't a thing. I was always number one because of my tickets. I honestly couldn't even tell you my average ticket when I was at 3.2 million. But when we started tracking it, I remember, Nate, you came into a meeting and you brought it up, and I was like, yeah, I'm not for this, and we're not going to micromanage type of deal. And so the first month we did it, I'll never forget, the 1 month I was in single digit closing percentage, and I still sold $250,000. So I thought to myself, well, okay, so I'm doing $250,000 on 9% closing. That's my ticket to get better, is selling on more jobs. So then what I did was I switched my focus onto just getting money on every job, getting a sale on every job. Well, then what I noticed is my numbers dropped because now I'm taking those lower options and not pushing for the higher options. So through trial and tribulation and with Sam, our sales trainer, he showed me all I got to do is bring my lowest ticket up. So if my lowest ticket was $500, that's an easy walk away. If I bring that up to 5,000, that's what the people go with. And honestly, this Service Titan thing has brought something out of me I didn't even know was there. This is, we can talk about where I'm tracking to go. I'm closing 75% on the year. That's not where I want to be. 4 million. I want that to be child's numbers. I want to close 80%, 90%. And that's what drives me. I mean, the other thing is with estimates too, when I first got hired, it was COVID. We were running calls that were service calls. That's where I was shining at. Well, when we started integrating these generator estimates or estimates for a rewire, I'll never forget, Brian, when you were here, I said the same thing. Man, I hate running estimates. Angie's List leads, they're garbage. And it's but you know what? If I can start capitalizing on them, there's not a call that I can't run. And that's where I'm at now. I will sell an estimate. I will sell a maintenance, first time, fifth time. I'll sell a call back. There's no call that I'm talking myself out of.
All those things are factual statements, ladies and gentlemen, and I can verify that as somebody who actively studies the reports in Service Titan. This man is on another level right now. He is 100% closing in the 70 percentile. He wants to do more. And I appreciate you sharing kind of that journey, Logan, because, there's probably some other people out there who are getting pulled in one way or the other, or they're not focused on their closing rate, or they're focused on certain metrics, but not all of them. And you've really personally evolved through this, and it has driven you to be better. I can only shower kudos upon you for that type of perspective change. It didn't come easy, and you come out on the other side so much better, so much more versatile. And that versatility is driving a lot of this success, because just like you're talking about there, now you're looking at calls that you used to consider trash. Like, you're probably going into it with head trash. You're thinking there's no way this is going to close. There's no way that this person's going to buy. And you've completely 180'd on that stuff. Now you're walking into anything. And if there's a person who can fog a mirror, you are there and all about it. And it's time to make the most of that opportunity. And so kind of speak to us about, in your mind, obviously you kind of gave us a little bit of clue there, but like, what was it like changing the brain function up top to have that perspective and actually execute on it too? Because it's one thing to say, okay, well, I'm just going to change my perspective. And then you go in there and get your lunch handed to you, and you're like, that was exactly what I thought it was going to be. And you can only play those mind games for so long before you start realizing that you didn't actually change anything. You just kind of covered up your own stuff for a while. So how did you both change your mind as well as actually change the outcome of a lot of these quote unquote difficult calls to run?
Yeah. So when I got, and this is the story of everybody, when you come out on top your first year in a truck, and when I say on top, I mean by 700,000 in sales, you get comfortable. You don't think anybody's going to touch you, and it's one of those things. You could see my next year, I dropped to 2.8, then to 2.6. And I had to do something. I wasn't liking what I did anymore. I was feeling the pressure of, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be number one anymore. Kind of like Brian always talks about, the imposter syndrome that was coming out. And I'll never forget, I came home, I was having a rough time at work. Dude, I had a month where I sold $160,000. I literally came home from work and told my wife, I'm not meant for this. They found out I can't do this anymore. And my wife, dude, and we laugh because it's 160,000. Some people would kill to have that month, but that's where I'm a little different. And when I came home, my wife said, Logan, we're fine financially. Go to work, do what you like, get all that stuff out of your head. And it was just a switch that clicked, Nate. Like I found through trials and everything, this is what I want to do. And if I want to do this and I want to teach everybody and I want to get over this, I got to be 100%. And I can't be 100% by doubting a free estimate, or I can't be 100% by on the way to the call, calling a coworker and complaining that I can't believe they have me running to Pittsburgh, or wherever we go. And that was the transformation for me. And seeing, like, when you go into an Angie's List, that feeling you get now, it's like, oh, Angie's List, I'll sell that one. That's not bad. And hearing the dispatcher call me and say, are you sure you want to run this? This is okay. Like, that's a challenge now. I got to challenge myself. I got bored. I got bored. I didn't need to get better. I mean, what's the difference between 2 million and 3 million financially? I mean, it's not that drastic. It's not like 60,000 to 5 million. You know what I mean? And all you guys at the office, Brian, you're not at the office anymore, but you too, like, you guys always told me not get that, excuse my French, but you said, get that shit out of your head. Don't worry about it. Just, you got to do what you got to do. Get back to doing what you love. And I just had to do that. And when I did, and I saw these numbers, I was like, oh my gosh, now I have something to look for. I just had a meeting today with Brennan and asked him how I could bring up my closing percentage. And he's like, dude, you're closing at 75%. Like, I don't even want to talk about this, but that's me. I told you a while ago, I said, Nate, when I'm closing at 100%, I'm going to figure out how to do 105. Like, that's what I'm going to do.
Ironically, Logan would actually be the guy who could somehow do that, because he has literally sold non-jobs at a gas station to a non-customer and closed a job that we didn't even run. He has done that. So it is possible we could get there.
Yeah. But it's just the mind shift change. It's not easy. There's days that I go back in the slump. Yesterday I closed 50% instead of the 75 I won. But I just got to tell myself, tomorrow's a new day. You have 4 calls. Make it worth your time. Make it worth their time. And you know what? If you go into a call that you weren't ever going to sell, at least you got reps. At least you got practice.
So good. And I know Brian loves his video game analogies. So it sounds like to me, Logan, that, for a little bit of time there, you were content to play on easy mode, and something changed in your mind because you kind of got sick of just winning at that level. And so you're like, all right, we're going to step it up. We're going to go up to hard mode. We're going to go up to legacy mode. We're going to challenge. And what that has done in you is not only has it inspired an attitude of like, let's go accomplish things, let's go become victorious, let's go conquest, but you're also seeing the results to follow with that same mindset. And so you have changed your mind literally in real and tangible ways. And the results are also following suit, because it's not just this BS about, hey, oh, every call is a good call. No, you're actually running every call like it is a good call. And you are actually capitalizing on the opportunities that are in front of you. So good.
And, there's a saying that I would call a good friend of mine, Mike Sheff, says is now it's time to just give it all away. I didn't understand what that meant. I never really got into that, but we've had 2 new hires start at Mister Sparky, and one of them I personally helped get to 240 his first month. And I'm like, holy crap, I do have the ability to do this. And what I'm saying is helping. And guys are calling me from all over the country to, hey, what are you doing? It's like, dude, just get to your basics, enjoy what you do, and watching other guys grow too now is it's just amazing. I mean, I saw 2 guys do very well, better than I did when I started. And I said, there is no way I'm going to sit back and just let them take over. Not yet. Not yet.
So let's dive into that, bro. You said, let's stick to the basics. Now, your basics have you pushing 4 million in 2025. And, most electricians' basics have them pushing 350,000 for 2025. So there's clearly a difference in what those basics look like. And it doesn't, I know what you're going to talk about isn't just electrical. It's just people and how you go about running your call. Oh, did want to say congrats too. Logan joined me on Tommy Mello's Home Service Expert podcast back in September of 2024 for what I believe was his first co-hosted episode, where it was me and Tommy and Logan doing sales objections role play. And it was a freaking blast. And it was a very successful episode for the Home Service Expert. So props for that, my man. That was a really cool episode, and a fiasco at best, because man, dude, we had some audio issues on Logan's side. Like, it was a great episode. I was in studio with Tommy. We had Logan zoomed in, and Giuseppe, one of Tommy's editors, hit me up and said, hey, Logan's audio didn't come through at all. And I'm like, what? And he's like, at all. So getting the 3 of us back together again to re-record that episode was probably going to be sometime in 2027. So Giuseppe sent the tracks of me and Tommy's audio to Logan and said, just play it like you're there with him, and then record yours in between, just like you did. And he did it. And you can't tell that's what happened. Now you'll be able to. But what he said was, he's like, I said, how did it go? And Logan was like, I think it went well. And he's like, I just acted like I was just sitting there talking to you guys, and it worked.
Yeah, I had the video rolling and everything. It was hilarious.
Oh man, I wish I had video of that happening, because that would just be epic. There is audio, thankfully.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about your process. What does that look like? And by all means, talk about the way that you feel for the people you serve and how you treat them, because I do believe it's the biggest differentiator between yourself and a lot of other high producers who aren't going to hit the numbers that you hit, at least anytime soon.
So yeah, what I found with me is, as we've talked about it, anybody that's listened to the podcast will tell you about the Loganisms and all that. What I've mastered is with this, in embracing that off the cuff stuff I'm going to say. That is part of my process now. So when I'm introducing myself at the door, it's a simple, hey, I'm Logan from Mister Sparky. It looks like we're here to troubleshoot a light switch that's not working. Go over it. I know, Brian, you're not going to like this, but I haven't been with the GoPro stuff. I haven't been studying it a lot, and I'm going to get better at that. But with that, I just tell them up front, I got to tell you this, I'm going to be pretty upfront with you. You're not going to like it, probably. I just want you to know I'm just going to tell you how it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. And can we agree that that's the best way? And once they agree to that, they're in my back pocket because I can get along with anybody. And once you take down that wall, I mean, we talk about responses. You never hear someone say, no, I want you to be as nice and sugarcoated as much as you can. So that's the number one. That's the number one part of my process is setting that expectation to when I do say to a client when we're sitting down or in the middle of the call, when I do say like, that sounded completely ridiculous. Like they're not getting upset about that. They already knew like that. And the thing is it checks me too. It checks me at the door to that. And so my process is the upfront contract is golden. From there, I don't charge diagnostic fees. I don't go into that little petty stuff. In my opinion, it shouldn't take an electrician longer than 15 minutes to find the problem in a home. I understand sometimes we can, but you should know what you're doing and you should be able to diagnose it. So I charge for that. That's a bad thing right up front. So when I'm sitting down at the end, I preface that I'm going to give them 3 options, your green, yellow, red options, and we go from there. I've never had somebody say that green, yellow, red doesn't make sense to them. I mean, that we can go option 1, 2, 3, good, better, best. Green, yellow, red is what makes sense as far as electric wise. And honestly, my process is so chopped up, it's hard for me to tell you this is what I do now. This is when I hit it. But I'm hitting all those things. I'm hitting the empathy. I'm hitting the gratitude. I'm hitting the experience. I'm hitting the permission. It's just, I'm better at mirroring than I am as leading the call, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, and when you kind of reflect, and I respect the fact that sometimes the process of a person is very personal and, you call them Loganisms. There's certain things that like, hey, Brian's more witty than I am. Right. And I can try to study wit. I could try to increase that. He's probably still going to have an edge on me by nature of his personality. And so I can respect the fact that there's certain elements of a call or an experience in the home that are going to be naturally well suited to somebody like you because, that's how Logan does it and those types of things. But help our listeners understand, in 2024, you're closing at 9%. You're having bad head trash about some of the call types that you're going to and all that stuff. Did you change anything in your process to now have 75% closing and crazy average ticks and all that stuff? Did anything change? And can you identify any of those things so that somebody listening could actually say, all right, I'll try that?
I went over the top. Brian had often talked about the gratitude. You almost want to overload them with that. And when he gave the example about his wife and he said something one way and then he said it the other and it was totally different, I thought to myself, well, I wonder if that works with other things. I wonder if overloading them with knowledge works for a high D. I wonder if overloading them with empathy works for a relational person. And that is the only thing I change. I'm actually identifying the type of people they are when I walk in the house now. And once I have that, then I know which route I need to go. If you're an engineer, I'm not going to baffle. I'm still going to be your friend. I'm still going to talk to you, but I'm not going to baffle you with all the friendly talk about you and your kids and your vacation. I mean, I'll still bring that up.
Nate just got a look of gratitude across his face. Finally,
yeah,
you can be my electrician.
Believe it or not, that has helped me so much. Like my manager, Brennan, is a completely different person than Nate. Nate is a completely different person than Brian. And you guys are all different in your own way. However, I can sit and talk to each one of you guys about and mirror how you guys are. Now, Nate, I'm a little off the cuff with you. You don't laugh a lot.
I'm harder. I get it.
Yeah. What I did was like, I would always say to Brian, like, I like my clients because I feel like I could go have a beer with them. And it's like, well, I want to have a beer with everybody. I feel like I could go have a beer with you, Nate. Like you got to diversify yourself. The emotional, the empathy will always get you in the door. It'll always get you started. But once, with an engineer, I mean, you can be empathetic and they don't care. I mean, you got to learn where to take it from there. So that would be what I was changing. I use my empathy to break down the door on a lot of those calls, and then I wouldn't know where to go. I would have to study what to do next. And now it's like, you can morph that to, let me use my empathy to break down the door, but then let me also come down on your level and let me come down and talk to you about what's important to you. I don't know if you guys know this, but I have like 40 million hobbies now from meeting people that I didn't even know were a thing. And it's because I am generally interested. I love that interaction is good. It's not fake. Like, I was talking to a guy earlier today about diamond art. Like, I don't have time for that. My fingers are too fat for that. But it was legit cool to see the products he made. Like, that's what it's about.
That's amazing. And appreciate you sharing that, Logan. I want to understand, and perhaps you can help our listeners understand as well, what are some of the obvious things that you call out or notice in these different personality types? I think that's what you're referring to. You said engineer. Obviously, you're not talking about a literal engineer, although perhaps sometimes they are. You're talking about more of their personality is scientific and analytical and, less, like no emotion, those types of things. And then you have other variations of that too. And you said a high D, that'd be like an A type alpha person is all cut to the chase. Give me the bottom line. No time for fluff, no time for small talk. Just, fix it and let's move on. You have the familial people who are all about the relationships and like, I care about everybody and what they're doing. The party people, there's Briggs Myers and all kinds of things that go into all these different types of personalities. But what are some of the things that you, as an electrician in the field, when you knock on that door, are you observing the car out front? Are you observing how they answer the door, observing their body language? Or is it, the first 5 minutes gives you what's going on? Help our listeners identify some of these basic things that you use to pick up on what type of person am I dealing with, and then parlay it into, and now I know that I should act like this.
Yeah. So my introduction's the same on every call. So it's, hey, I'm Logan from Mister Sparky. This is what we're here for, blah, blah, blah. Thank you so much for having me out here. Before we get started, I just want to tell you, I'm going to be pretty upfront and I'm going to be pretty blunt. That statement right there, you are going to see the body language change in every different kind of people. If they're an alpha male, they're going to look at you and more or less say, in polite words, they're going to say, you're not going to tell me what to do. I'm going to tell you. They're going to puff their chest out. They're going to show their colors. Or if you get to the engineer, they're going to squirm. They're going to squirm like, holy crap, this guy's going to tell me something? I already know everything. Or, it's picking up on those body languages. Or if it's somebody that's worried about safety, they're like, oh, thank God you're going to do that. I just need to know everything about my house. And then what you do, like most of the time, like the engineer type and those type of guys, they're going to be walking away. They're going to be telling you, hey, my panel's downstairs. I'm on a work call. They don't have time for you. That's those type of people.
It's not the not having time part so much. It's like Chris Voss, Black Swan Group, they train this and they only train 3 personality types, unlike the disc that you're talking about, which is D is the dominant, the driver, that's the alpha male. I is the influencer, the friendly, probably the one that's going to say, oh, thank you so much for, I care so much about the safety of my home. And then there's the S, who's the steady relator, who's relationship oriented, who may be prone to just back off and walk away. And then there's the C, that's the flat out engineer, who will also in that moment probably walk away from you and act disinterested. But in Black Swan Group, it's the assertive, which is the D, and they're going to hit back. It's the analyst, that's the C, that's the engineer, and they're going to kind of walk away, like just act indifferent to the situation and point downstairs. And then there's the accommodator, that's the I and the S, and they're going to kind of move into the friend zone and go, oh man, yeah, that's great. And what they say is it's fight, flight, make friends. So you're really narrowing down the 4 disc quadrants into the 3 Black Swan Group personality types or negotiator types. Doesn't mean these 3 people are exactly like that all the time. As Chris Voss put it in on this show on episode 100, he said, it's what do you resort to the most when you get hit in the face, so to speak.
Yep.
It's your negotiating personality. So that's what you resort to. And you've masterful job of explaining it, even though you probably didn't remember the concept of the
I didn't.
Black Swan group because it's been almost 2 years since I trained it at your shop now. But it's you perfectly described the 3 personalities: fight, flight, make friends.
Yeah. And that my introduction, when we train about the empathy and gratitude. I am more of a, and without being direct, I am more of a, I'm going to walk in your house, I'm going to hit you in the face, and I'm going to see where we go. From there, I can determine where I need to go. You know, if it's one of the accommodators, half the time you're 25 minutes before you even leave the doorway. You know, like you're saying, you're talking friends, you're talking family, you're talking all that. The biggest thing is determining the difference between that analyst and the alpha. But the nice thing about an alpha is they will always push back to you, and they will always say, that's the kind of guy I am. You know, or guys will say, yeah, I don't really have time for all the BS. Like, that's telling me right there where I need to steer my process. And the analyst, if they say, you know, and I like analysts because they just want to make you feel dumber than them. And here's the thing, like, analysts are very intelligent in their field, but you're not going to be smarter than me in electric. And if you make that known, they take a back seat and now they're riding along, you know, and that's like you're saying, Brian, with the fight, flight, or friends. I mean, that truly is how you find out what you need to mirror. I mean, Nate, I don't think you could possibly fake being an accommodator. Like, you couldn't fake that.
Goodness, no. I mean, are you kidding? Have you met him?
I mean, I would even reach out to say I don't, and nothing wrong with it. I don't think you could fake an alpha either. You're an analyst. That's what you do.
Yep. Personality of a plank of wood and very accommodating.
I mean, hey, come on. Don't talk about wood like that.
No, I mean, that's truly what you're looking for. It's a scavenger hunt, and basically a call to me is a scavenger hunt. You're gathering clues throughout the call. And when you sit down to give your Super Bowl presentation, you better know who you're talking to, because if you don't, you're talking to the wall. And that's truly how my process goes. And it's a tornado sometimes. I mean, it's, you know, sometimes if I'm wondering if, well, this person's coming off as an alpha, but he kind of seems like an accommodator, I'll throw something out there. I'll say something about, oh, I see you like to hunt. You know, where do you hunt? And they'll tell you that they're the best hunter. They shoot the biggest deer. They have the best camp. And then it's ding, ding. I don't really care. But guess what? Now I know what you are. Mm-hmm. Like, you got to set that bait. And that is how I've been closing so much, is that's my first step.
That's so fascinating, Logan. And I love how you just framed it right there. You're setting a bait. It's so, like, contrary to what would seem to be the logical progression here, which, okay, Logan's an electrician, so probably the first thing that he does is he probably goes and tries to identify what the problem with the electrical situation is. Wrong. The first thing that Logan is doing is identifying what type of person he's dealing with. He knows he's going to solve the electrical thing. That's beneath him. Like, that's just going to happen. That's going to be a thing that he's going to get to eventually. The very first thing that he's doing is finding ways to identify the type of person that he's dealing with. And so let's push that out a little bit, Logan. So you went into Brian's house. Brian's generally more on the alpha side of things. He's more assertive, more aggressive on things. I know he can go other directions, but for this illustration here, he's going to personify that type of person. And you identify through the course of conversation, probably in the first 5 to 10 minutes, because he's not going to spend a lot of time talking about things that, you know, are beneath him, you know, the lowly electrician that he's is face to face right now, all those types of things. He's making money right now, you know.
I mean, that's kind of including the engineer, like, even, so you're talking about the assertive or the high D. It's not that he looks down on the person, and I'm a high D, I'm a 99 D. It's in the moment that I'm operating out of that mode, like when I have a service tech over to the house, I'm about this business at hand. And when you start talking about your kids or my kids, or I almost can't make the transition to Family Guy talking about the kids when I'm like, I have an outlet out upstairs and you're here to fix it. Like, it just doesn't compute to me. We need to be moving upstairs and we can save all this chit chat for later. And then the engineer, like you were saying, like, they want you to feel like they're smarter than you. that's a general misconception about the high C. It's like Nate doesn't get off on being smarter than you. He's just, all he sees is consistencies or inconsistencies. And if he sees something or hears something he believes is untrue, he cannot let it rest. He has to bring it up. And oftentimes we, the rest of us, the accommodators and the assertives, feel like he thinks he has one up on me and he wants to make sure I know that he thinks he's smart. No, that's not it at all. He cannot rest on an injustice or a fabrication. And then accommodators, which I'm also high I, I'm like 98 I, and we deal in generalities, like overwhelmingly in generalities. We're not detail oriented people at all. So it's very overview, high level. We're not interested in details and we don't spend much time on them. So a guy like an engineer or a high C on the disc profile can oftentimes think we're embellishing the truth. So they're constantly calling us out. It's like, no, like I say, you did 350,000 in revenue in January. And Nate's like, it was 348, 623. And I'm like,
right.
Yeah. Like I said, 350. Why are you, why are you acting like a prick? So it's it's a good way to see the high D, the assertive, the CEO type, because we've named these 4 personality types ourselves with different characters throughout the years. But that type person, not trying to punk you, not trying to belittle you, isn't a douche that doesn't care about your family and your whatever. He's mission oriented. He's very task oriented. The engineer, the high C, is very detail oriented. It's all about the details, the numbers, the statistics, the facts and figures. So it's not that they don't care. It's not that they dislike you. That's just not what you're here for. So take no offense to it, is I guess what I'm trying to say. Is like you don't want to be offended by this.
Yeah.
When you come up against that particular personality, Logan, the person who is all about the business, who's about the task at hand, as Brian's mentioning there, at what point are you catering the rest of the call differently?
So as soon as I get separation, soon as I separate from them and I go do my thing, after I tell them I'm going to be up front, they give me the reaction, I got a basis. I'm going down in their panel or away from them, wherever it is, and I am developing, what am I going to say next? How am I going to further their conversation? How am I going to pull them closer? If they are an alpha, I'm going to say to them, look, it sounds like you have a pretty good grasp on your house. This is your house. I don't want to offend you, kind of submit to them a little bit. Let them feel in charge. If it is an accommodator, that's going to be a complete different conversation. That's going to be like, hey man, I see your panels down in the basement beside your fishing rods. I got to ask. And then you go into that. And then the analyst, it's like, hey, I see that you have a graph on your wall. Like, I got to tell you, I'm really into the analytics myself. Can I ask what you're graphing? Like, so your answer to your question is, as soon as you get space, that's when you need to start thinking how this is going to go. And then from that point on, you have got to stick in that. I think it's Jordan, I could be wrong, Jordan Belfort or Jordan Peterson. They talk about the psychology of selling being a graph, right? Point A is the bottom, point B is the top. And anything that differs that, like, so if you get an objection, your response has to bring you back up to at least level on that graph to keep descending to the end result of them buying. You can't be a person that, the analyst, you can't get caught up in something and have to explain yourself to them, because then you're going backwards. Keep that conversation going forwards. And Brian said it perfect. These guys aren't trying to offend you. And most of the time, if you feel that they're offending you and you call that out, that's a reset right then and there. You will flip an engineer right over most of the time by just saying, look, I'm not trying to offend you. And I kind of feel like you're not grasping what I'm saying. Is it something I did? And you trigger that rescue response. I mean, everybody has it. There's nobody that I know in this world that purposely likes hurting people. There's not. And if you can bring that out of them, which everybody has it, even the alphas, Brian, you are an alpha. And I can tell you this, we've had some conversations that were pretty deep, and you have feelings too, like we all do. And it's knowing your audience and how you need to project yourself. Half of the thing is delivering of the words. To an analyst, you got to sound It has to be crisp. It has to be smooth. There's no stuttering. You have to be fluent to show that you know what you're talking about. In alpha, you have to be stern. You have to use a higher voice. Sometimes I talk with my hands a lot, sometimes showing emotion, showing this is what I'm doing. And with the accommodator, sometimes slow it down, man. Slow it down, get a change in the inflection in the voice. And that all builds up to that Super Bowl. And when you get there, you have to be ready to continue that. And the biggest thing is don't be scared of messing up. I mean, that's what I was doing with engineers. I didn't want to offend them. And I'm like, well, an offended engineer is still better than a regular engineer. So, you can always come out of that. Does that answer your question, Nate?
Absolutely. And now that we're at the point of the Super Bowl presentation and we're getting to the place where you're talking about what you have found and you're probably moving into a buying question at some point here, does that alter in any way? Are you asking different people to buy differently, or have you come up with a uniform strategy that you employ no matter what?
So, yeah, I mean, right here's where I fall on the sword, and we can pick this up with some role play. I mean, I can show you each different type. If I'm sitting down with an accommodator, I call it out. I'm like, look, man, I really appreciate your hospitality when I'm in the house. You seem like a really cool dude. I'm going to explain things that you can understand. We can go ways, or we can connect later and we can do something. Does that sound good? There's your accommodator, right? You get to your analytical guy. Just say, hey, Nate, I got to tell you, man, it doesn't seem like you really care about a whole lot of the details and the fine lines here. You want the stats, right? And that's what I've provided for you. So you're opening that up, you're introducing that. And then when you get to an alpha, I mean, you just say to the alpha, look, I have some options here for you. Seems like you have a pretty strong grasp on your house here. So if you would like, I would like to go over with them. If you don't want to, that's fine. You're giving them the power. And that's how I start all my presentations. And here's the thing. If I tell you, I mean, Nate, if I came into your house, and I'm sorry I keep using you, but you're the one I know. If I came into your house and I said, Nate, man, it sounds, from what I'm gathering here, it sounds like, you're a cool dude. And maybe if we don't choose to do business, we can, maybe we can hook up after and hang out or something. You sound like a really cool dude. You are going to tell me right then and there that I'm completely wrong with that profile I just built.
Yeah. So that would immediately strike terror into my personality. And I'd be like, no, I have family. I can't walk away from them. I don't even know this guy.
Yep.
There's no way I'm going to get a drink with him. Like, that's not happening. And it's pretty weird that he's even bringing that up. So
Sure.
That's not going to come out of my mouth. That's all going to run through my head. And instead, coming out of my mouth is going to be like, yeah, okay, well, hey, appreciate that offer. Maybe that's something that, we can think about, very ambiguous, very sidestepping.
Now, if I did that, so here's the funny thing. I'll use both of you guys. If I did that to Brian would probably say something like, I don't drink, but maybe we can go to the gym together sometime. There's your alpha. Your alpha showing you he's stronger than you. He's bigger than you. His diet's better than you.
If you want to get embarrassed, of course.
Right. Exactly.
So a great rule of thumb, and this is something that Mike Vavrick came on, a friend of all three of ours, and talked about on Wiser Wednesday several weeks ago, was the breakdown of each. So it's actually good to know, because if you're really kind of skewing your presentation toward one, well, if we're going to go in order, D, the dominant, the driver, that's only 10% of the population. So to kind of build if you're very new and really just crafting a presentation and crafting your personality type, if you leave that out, you still have a 90% chance of connecting, right?
Yep.
So it almost makes sense to. And let's be real, the majority of 20-year-old technicians who graduated high school and spent 3 years as an apprentice or whatever, and are finally running their own calls, if they run into a D, to an assertive, they're kind of falling apart and backing right off and just getting chewed up and spit out. And hey, it's just part of the game when you're young. There are high Ds that do well with other high Ds because they take the personality out of it. They don't get caught up in the emotional thinking like, oh, why is he being so mean to me?
Mm-hmm.
How we do when we're 20 years old and run into an A-type personality. But the I the quote unquote party waiting to happen, as Ed Staub from Sailor Training used to put it, that's like 25 to 30% of the population. So that's like 1 out of 4, maybe 1 out of 3. And then the S, the steady relator, just the good human being. This one we classified as the kindergarten teacher, right? So we had the CEO, the stand-up comedian, the kindergarten teacher, and the engineer. The kindergarten teacher, just the nice person, is 40 to 45% of the population.
Yep.
So nearly half the people you're going to meet at the home are this nice person. So it's a heck of a way to start building your presentation is for this particular personality type. And then the C, the engineer, unfortunately for the rest of us, is still 20 to 25%. So up to 1 out of 4.
I take offense to that statement, Brian. That has offended me 59%. I am above average offended.
And I think that was a very important statistic, Brian. I mean, what you're doing when I say I'm bringing these questions up at the beginning of the presentation, and I'm saying that is, you're exactly right. The 10% population isn't a lot. So if you let's be real here. If you're not an alpha, you don't want to be called an alpha. And that's the big thing. When you bring that up, they're going to correct you if you're wrong. So now you know, or they're going to farther say that. Same with the analyst, same with the engineer. And a humor, like the accommodator, that's easy. They're going to go right away and back up and tell you. I mean, I hate to tell you, if you get to a table and you don't know they're an accommodator, you probably ought to take some more notes. Like, that's a pretty easy one to recognize.
Yeah, the accommodator's been taking notes the whole time. Being like, oh, wow, yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah. It's a way for me to check myself and mental check, like, hey, this is what I think. I'm going to spit this out and see what I get back. Is this right or is it wrong? And then go from there.
Yeah. Obviously, it's doing great things for you, Logan. And to celebrate your success, we are cheering you on. And we'd love to hear how the year's panning out for you later on. With our remaining time here on this episode, I wanted to kind of hop over to some of the common objections that are coming up in your world, and want to use you as kind of the resource here on some of the things that you're hearing. I don't know if 2025 has different objections than 2024 did. I don't know if, some of the coaching that you've been doing with other guys on the team and helping them out, if you've seen some stuff there. But tell us about some of the common objections or the ones that you're frequently hearing either by yourself or from others. Let's start with that list.
2025 seems to be a lot of, I'm getting multiple estimates. That's coming back. Before, I think at the beginning of my career, I don't think people wanted a lot of people in their house. So they would get one estimate and freak out. So that's coming back. The other thing that's coming back is, it's always been there, is I don't have the money. I haven't been getting a ton of, I don't think it needs done, or objections that go with that. My big one right now that I've been getting a lot of is just the I don't have the money situation, and I have 3 other estimates coming. That's a huge one for me. Those 2 right now, and like we've all realized, some of them there may be more. I just don't hear them. I don't. I just go through them.
Yeah. Well, let's do this. It's been a minute since we've done some role play here. So Brian put 100,000 on Detroit to go to the Super Bowl. So he's in a little bit of dire straits here on the money side of things. You're in the home. You're making some presentation. First of all, context here. When does this I don't have the money come up? Is it like at the front of the call? Is it when you're actually asking for the sales? Or when you're going over some problems? When's it coming up?
Most of the time it's coming up the whole call. They're saying, yeah, I don't have the money for that. I'm not fixing that this time. You guys said that last year, that type of thing. And then when I present, Brian says, I don't have the money for that right now.
All right, well, let's do it.
Yeah. Logan, I've only been a Lions fan for 3 years, so I didn't know any better. And I bet all of my money on the Lions making a Super Bowl, even though they have never been to a Super Bowl.
So since you like making bad decisions, let's make this. No, I'm just kidding. Don't say that.
Dude, I wasn't laughing at all. I was like, oh, here comes the Loganism. Can't wait to tell my team about this one.
No, so yeah, Brian, I got to tell you, man, I thought the Lions were going to do something too. I truly did. I don't know about putting a bunch of money on it, but I see why you would do that. Let me ask you, when you say you don't have the money or you're not ready to do this, are you telling me you don't know where that money's coming from? Or are you telling me you don't know if you're ever going to have that much money? Or are you simply telling me you don't want to spend that money on this repair? Just please help me understand what exactly you're saying.
Yeah, I'm saying every extra dime I had got blown on the Super Bowl that my team didn't make.
Okay. With that being said, would you feel comfortable saying that you're going to make a couple extra dimes every other week?
Extra dimes?
Like you have a job, right? It's not like you're
Yeah, I still have an income. Sure. Yeah. I didn't lose my job over it.
There's a big difference with putting your house on the market because of a gambling addiction and versus I just lost $20 at the casino. So that's why I'm asking. So with that being said, Brian, I mean, it looks like our total here's 12,000. Let's pretend money isn't an issue. Forget about the Lions letting you down like they always do. What option would you go with here if you could do one?
No, like I said, I'm leaning toward the 12,000 one.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's obvious.
If money wasn't an option, yeah.
Sure. And the way I like to make decisions sometimes for safety is I'd like to make a decision as money isn't an obstacle. So with that being said, you're making the right choice. I got to ask you, think deep, dig deep in your memory bank here. How long do you think it's going to take you to come up with that $12,000?
Oh, well, it's February now. I mean, I should get a decent tax return back. Is betting on a Super Bowl tax deductible? I'm not sure about that. I don't know about that. I'll see what my accountant can come up with.
Knowing the Lions fan, you're going to do it again next year. It sounds like comfortably you would say in 24 months you could have that much money, correct?
Yeah, I would say that shouldn't be an issue. Sure. A couple of years.
Okay. Well, let's do this. Why don't I do the work now for you and you pay me later?
You'll do the work now and I'll just cut you a check in 2 years.
It doesn't quite work that way, but yes, I would do the work now and you pay me later. The way that works is I check your credit, just brief credit check to check and make sure I'm protected and you're protected. You're going to get a minimum monthly installment every month just to kind of prove that, hey, he's still alive. He still has a job. He still has an income. And then whenever you get that money, you can just drop it on it and pay that completely off.
What's the interest rate look like on a deal like that?
That's going to depend all on you.
Is there a range?
There is a range. The range is interest free to 15.9%. So I don't want to tell you 9% you get approved for 15. I mean, what interest rate do you have to be at? What's a good interest rate to you?
I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of curious what it looks like. Yeah, I don't know.
All right. Well, this is the best thing about this. This is a soft pool. This isn't going to affect you. So let's run it. Let's see what you get approved for, and let's go from there.
There it is. I would say even maybe cutting out a character here. When I started asking the questions about the interest rate, say, I'm not entirely sure. There's a range. This is a soft check. It's not going to affect your credit. Let's go ahead and run this and see what it comes back with. Sound good? And move for the close. Because you know the odds. Like if someone lets you run the financing and gets approved, what percentage of those jobs actually sell?
I would say probably 95% of those jobs.
It's almost 100.
Yep.
If you can get someone to let you run the credit and they get approved, it's almost 100%. So any extra time we take in between talking about it and actually running the credit is us talking ourselves out of a sale. So as fast as humanly possible, you get them to start filling out the form on your phone or the tablet or whatever it is. With the ones we use, I believe it actually emails it to them and they do it on their own device, which is nice. So as fast as humanly possible, you just immediately move to I'll just shoot you an email real quick. You fill the stuff out and we'll find out real fast. How's that sound?
Good.
That's good stuff, Logan.
Nice job, bro.
Yeah, man. I love how you moved. I mean, very quickly through that conversation, you transitioned Brian from defensive, I don't have the money, to, well, if money wasn't an object, would you consider? Now Brian's considering. And now you bring in the very low barrier of, hey, let's try this simple action step and just see. Still no commitment, still no absolute need to do anything other than this small bit of information in this credit check. To now Brian is seriously considering, well, that is something I would actually like to do. And now I've been presented with the method to do it. It's a very casual way of transitioning from the defensive, no thanks, no money, to the, well, maybe, to the actually, let's go ahead. Right? So good.
What Logan does so well is he leaves his kid in the car, as David Sandler used to put it, his emotional 5-year-old who wants to get real nervous right now and get offended and not know what to say and just start rambling on and on about nothing and talk his way out of the business. That little fella gets left out the passenger seat of the truck. Logan took so many 4 Mississippi pauses in there. Just, yeah. Okay. Sure. That sounds great. Like, no rambling, no nervousness, and then constantly moving us forward to filling out paperwork. And here's the deal. If I start getting really excusey and like, oh, I don't, oh, no, well, I'll have to talk to my wife. Like, I know I told you I wasn't married and I live alone and I make all the decisions, but I wasn't even thinking my wife's at work and if all that starts happening, this is great news. It just means you haven't sold this person the slightest bit. Now you either get to cut your losses and move on to the next one, or man up, ladies too, and start over and get this person sold. But either way, if you just move forward with the close, you know where you're at. And the biggest challenge that I had as a young salesperson was I was so afraid to hear no, I wouldn't get an answer at all. Yep. I would just drag this thing out forever until we're walking toward the door. Besties. Yay, we had a great time. And I'm telling everybody at the shop, I didn't sell anything yesterday, but I had some great friends, man. Well, the next time I see them, it's going down. Come on. And the one thing we have to learn is like, leave the kid in the car. Your emotions don't belong here at all. Mm-mm. There's no place for your emotional self on this call with this person. You're here to fulfill the needs of their home, their system, whatever that system is for you, right? And the more you bring nervousness or any other emotion into it, the less you're going to sell. So Logan's always a testament to that, man, because he's just stoic. And he cries on calls. Yeah. How many times have you cried with a client on a call?
More than I'd like to admit. I had one, actually, you say that, I had one today. I got teared up. A young man was asking me, he's like, my wife wants me to be an electrician and I got to do it for the money. And I just stopped him. I'm like, no, you got to do what makes you happy. That's what you have to do. And it was like I was preaching to him and he got teary eyed. And I'm like, man, I'm talking to this 24-year-old kid about life lessons that.
So is he coming to interview with me to be a plumber now?
No, he's going to stay being a delivery driver.
Yeah. And it's like, so I don't mean that there's no place for any emotion on a call, but when it's time to close, when we're in that part of the conversation and we're talking about getting this thing done, the client is super nervous. So all of these dancing around and wishy-washy things they're doing, it's because I don't know what's supposed to happen here. I'm nervous. I've been taken advantage of before. I'm not sure about this process. And what I need, it's me and my 7-year-old and my 10-year-old walking through the park and a dog shows up. Hair stands up and starts growling at us. And I drop down on my back and tell the girls, run for your lives. I don't know what this thing's capable of, but we should all be very nervous. Like, how are the girls going to feel? How's the dog going to feel? No, I push the girls behind me very calmly, very slowly. I stand up straight and I face the dog down, right? And the girls get to go behind me and be all nervous and freak out a little bit. But my energy has to be stoic, if not a little assertive. And it's no different with the client who doesn't know what's supposed to be happening right now. They just don't want to be taken advantage of. And if you start getting nervous and wishy-washy now, you're filling them with that nervousness and anxiety. And of course, they have to think about it. They have to pray about it. They have to go see their brother-in-law who's an accountant. All the things are going to start coming out. Remember, it's not their fault. It's our fault.
Yep.
It's your fault. It's my fault.
Yep.
I did this. So when you have someone at your shop who has a 15% higher conversion rate, a $1,500 higher ticket average than you, it's your fault, not theirs, and not the clients, and not dispatch.
Yep.
It's your fault. Now, doesn't mean you're doing something like you're a bad person, you're a screw up. Just means they're a little ahead of you in this presentation game. But the one thing you've got to master is your emotions on that call.
Yep.
Fantastic episode here, Logan. Really appreciated you sharing all this stuff with us. It's great to have you back on. It's great to hear that you're making progress and changing lanes in your own career in terms of getting in the fast lane and making it happen. We're so excited for you. Thanks for sharing a lot of this information with our audience. I know that they're going to love this episode. They'll be hitting you up on the social media channels and all those types of things to let you know that they found it great. So this has been an excellent fourth time around, and we're really looking forward to it. So thanks so much for joining us. And any closing comments for our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, just don't waste those days like you guys, like the show says. But with that being said, what I want you to do is buckle up and be your kid and let your kid in the car, and we'll get it taken care of, and stay in there, hang in there, and continue on doing what you're doing, and don't ever give up.
Great place to close there. Logan, we know that you're living that out on a daily basis. That's a wrap for this episode. Hope that you enjoyed it. We know that you will. Make sure that you tell Logan that you did. You can find him on the social media channels. You can find him, and we can get you connected
Waste
to
No Day
Logan.
Facebook group.
Waste No Day Facebook group. Yep. Logan is also very open to communication as well. So I'm sure we can make connections if we have to. But it was a fantastic episode today. And the one thing that stands out to me as something that I think everybody should be challenged with is, instead of walking into your next call and trying to think about, what might be going wrong with the unit, or where the leak is in the ceiling, or which breaker it is that's controlling the switch that's not working, just hit the pause button on that and start trying to identify, who am I talking to? Who am I dealing with? What is the personality type that is in front of me? And how do I need to cater my actions and reactions for the rest of this call? You're all smart people. You all know how to do the trades piece of this pretty good by now. What you need to improve upon is learning the human element of the person who's standing in front of you. Logan did a great job of breaking that down for us today. And I'm sure that that will pay dividends for you if you follow through with those steps, just like it is for Logan. Great episode today. Again, share this one around. Let Logan know that you loved it. It's great to have him on for the fourth time. And we are going to leave you now with our weekly challenge, which continues to be to wake up each and every morning and waste no day.